At the dawn of my life, when colors were the language of the soul and the brush a tool to reveal the hidden, my eyes beheld a majestic image of a serpent swallowing its prey. I ventured into the world of drawing for the first time, my heart brimming with wonder. I drew what the eyes could not see, the struggle for survival within the beast's entrails. Yet, when I presented my masterpiece to the grown-ups, they saw nothing but a lifeless hat, unable to perceive the elephant lying deep within. Thus, with a coldness that stifles the imagination, the grown-ups advised me to abandon art and turn my attention to numbers and geography. I buried my talent in its infancy, realizing that adults always require explanations because of their lack of insight. Years passed, and I became a pilot roaming the skies, searching the stars for what I had lost on Earth, until the day came when my engine failed amidst the sands of the Sahara, alone with death. I was more isolated than a castaway in the middle of the ocean, desperately attempting to repair what was broken, while the water in my flask dwindled, and silence closed in like an eternal shroud, waiting for my inevitable end. At that defining moment between existence and nothingness, as the night wove its cold threads over the sand, I was awakened by a delicate voice, a strange call coming from nowhere, asking the impossible of me. Jumped up as if struck by lightning, and saw a small being with royal features and golden hair, looking at me with astonishing seriousness. He did not appear lost or afraid in the midst of this daunting wilderness. In a voice filled with certainty, he asked me to draw him a sheep. And despite the strangeness of the situation and the peril of my circumstances, I took out my paper and pen, surrendering to the charm of a mystery that one does not dare disobey. I drew for him what I knew, the snake digesting the elephant, and I was shocked when he instantly recognized the truth, rejecting the massive elephant and the dangerous snake, insisting instead on a small sheep to inhabit his humble planet. My failed attempts to draw the sheep followed one after another. One looked sick, another was a ram with horns, and a third was an old one that would not live long, until my patience ran out, as I longed to return to fixing my cursed engine. With quick strokes, I drew a wooden box with 3 holes, and said to him irritably, "This is the box, and the sheep you want is inside." My astonishment was great when his face lit up with joy. He saw with his heart's eye what my eyes could not. He saw the sheep sleeping in the darkness of the box. And from here began my journey of discovering the world of this little prince, who came from beyond the stars. I gradually realized that the prince's home was nothing more than an asteroid wandering in space, no larger than a small house, known in astronomical records as Asteroid B612, a world unknown to adults. He told me about his planet, where beauty lies in simplicity, and where dangers stem from small seeds that grow into giant baobab trees that might tear his small planet apart if not uprooted in their infancy. It is a philosophy of daily discipline, for clearing the planet of weeds is akin to cleansing the soul, an arduous task requiring constant vigilance before the roots take hold and destroy everything beautiful and delicate. In the prince's world, sadness was healed by watching the sunset. By simply moving his chair a few steps, he could watch the sun bid the horizon farewell again and again in a single day. He once told me with deep-seated sorrow, "When we are very sad, we love to watch the sunset." He watched it 44 times in one day. How heartbroken must he have been then? He did not answer me about the secret of his sadness, but his silence was eloquent, telling of the soul's loneliness in God's vast kingdom and of his constant search for a meaning to fill the void he left behind in his distant sky. An argument broke out between us while I was busy loosening a rusty bolt in my airplane. He asked me about thorns and their use for flowers, and I answered him with the irritability of a grown-up that they were pure malice. He flared up with a rage I had never seen from him before. Shouting in my face through his tears, he defended his lone flower, which possessed nothing but 4 flimsy thorns to protect it from the world, asking whether defending beauty was not more important than airplane bolts. That night, I set aside my tools and felt ashamed, For what value does iron hold against the tears of a child who fears for his rose? I took him in my arms and promised him that I would draw a muzzle for his sheep and a shield for his beloved flower. She was a unique flower, sprouted from an unknown seed, and the prince watched her as she preened in her green chamber for days, refusing to emerge except in her full finery to captivate hearts with her breathtaking beauty. When she finally appeared, she was as vain as she was enchanting, demanding water and protection and speaking of her thorns as if they were tiger claws, capturing the prince's heart with her delicacy mixed with pretension. But her pride wearied his little soul. She would ask for the impossible and complain of the cold, making him doubt her sincerity. He did not realize then that her fragrance was filling his planet with life, despite all her whims. The prince decided to depart, so he carefully cleaned his 3 volcanoes, uprooted the last baobab seeds, and bid farewell to his flower with a heavy heart, discovering at the moment of parting that she truly loved him despite her feigned harshness. She told him, "Be happy and leave the glass globe. The night breeze will do me good, and my thorns will protect me." He traveled with flocks of migrating birds, leaving behind a fragrance and an unforgettable memory. Thus began his journey across the asteroids, seeking a friend and wisdom that would explain the mystery of existence, moving from one world to another, only to encounter the eccentricities of adults who had lost their innocence. On the first asteroid, he found a king dressed in purple and ermine, sitting on a simple throne and claiming to rule the stars and the universe. In reality, however, he had no one to follow his orders, except for a rat he heard at night. He was a wise king in his own way, only commanding what was possible and claiming that authority depends on reason. But the prince found his absolute rule to be an empty void that served no purpose. The prince left the king's planet muttering, "How strange grown-ups are," leaving behind a ruler who lacked subjects, obsessed with appearances that existed only in his deluded imagination. Then he met the conceited man who hears nothing but praise, wearing a strange hat to salute his imaginary admirers, and asking the prince to applaud him for no reason, in a futile dance of an inflated ego. After him, he visited the drunkard who drowns in cups of regret, drinking to forget his shame of drinking in a vicious cycle of despair and escape from reality, which instilled a deep sadness within the prince. The prince saw these 2 men as 2 sides of the same coin, a loss of purpose and the spirit's imprisonment in cells of one's own making. He fled from them, searching for worlds more meaningful and vast. On the 4th planet, he found a businessman immersed in his numbers, counting the stars and claiming ownership of them. He recorded their numbers on papers that he locked in boxes, thinking that possession was the ultimate purpose of existence. The prince said to him, "I own a flower that I water and volcanoes that I clean, so I am useful to them, but you are not useful to the stars." The man who had forsaken beauty and preoccupied himself with endless calculations was left speechless. The prince went on his way, feeling pity for a man who owned everything, yet owned nothing, a man who turned the vast universe into mere cold numbers in worn-out ledgers, oblivious to the true radiance of the stars. Our 5th planet was the smallest of all, with just enough room for a street lamp and a lamplighter. He would extinguish it at dawn and light it at sunset, in an exhausting task that never ceased due to the planet's rapid rotation. The prince loved this man because he was the only one who did not think of himself. He was devoted to his duty, despite its absurdity, acting as a creator of stars and an awakener of flowers each time he lit his lamp. He wished to have stayed with him, were it not for the planet being so small. So he bid him farewell, carrying a deep appreciation for this devotion, forgotten in the corners of the universe, and headed toward a larger planet inhabited by a venerable scholar. The prince arrived at the planet of the geographer, who writes massive books, but knows nothing of his own planet because he is not an explorer. Rather, he waits for others to bring him news. There, the prince learned the word ephemeral and realized with horror that his beloved rose was threatened with extinction. He wept for having left her, but the geographer advised him to visit planet Earth, a world of great renown. Thus, driven by sorrow and curiosity, the prince set his course toward Earth, carrying his never-ending questions, searching for what is real in a world that has come to idolize falsehood and numbers. When the prince's feet touched the sands of the earth, he found no humans, but rather a vast desert resembling the one I had fallen into. For a moment, he thought the earth was a deserted planet inhabited only by silence and wind. He met a golden snake that spoke to him in riddles, telling him she could return him to his home with a single touch. But he continued on his way, searching for human companions who might understand his pain. He walked for a long time and discovered a garden filled with thousands of flowers just like his rose. He fell to his knees and wept, thinking that his rose had lied to him when she claimed to be the only one in the universe. Here the fox appeared to teach him the true secret of life, that taming is the building of bonds that make beings unique to one another, and without them, we are merely numbers in an endless herd. The fox told him, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." And the prince realized that his rose was truly the only one, because she was the one he had watered, protected, and loved sincerely. He had become responsible for what he had tamed, and he returned to bid the roses farewell with a new truth, that his love was what created her value, not her biological rarity. For meaning stems from the spirit, not from outward appearance. On the 8th day, we ran out of water, so we walked through the darkness of the desert searching for an impossible well. The prince believed that the desert was beautiful because it hides a well somewhere beneath its sands. We found the well at dawn, and its water was like a gift to the soul. We drank from it as if drinking from a spring of immortality. I realized then that humans search everywhere and do not find what they are looking for in a single rose. But sadness returned to loom over us, for the time of his departure drew near, and we had to part. He could not take his heavy body with him to his distant planet, so he had to resort to the snake's venom. On the anniversary of his fall, the prince stood by the wall waiting for the snake and bid me farewell with words that will forever be etched in my soul. "My stars will be to you as 500 million little bells laughing in the sky." He fell gently, like a tree toppling without a sound, and his body vanished with the dawn. Since then, whenever I look at the sky, I hear his laughter in the stars and wonder, has the sheep eaten the flower? It is a never-ending story, telling us that love is the only bond that defies distances, and that the child dwelling within us is the only one who holds the keys to truth in this vast and mysterious universe.